Hey, what is going on everybody, and welcome to Fantasia. For today, we're going to be jumping into another session of Epic 7 out today. Got some more patch notes for you guys. This time around, we're going to be taking a look at the Hecate's skill adjustment, technically a nerf, and we're also going to be taking a look at the future plans that the Epic 7 development team has for the game, which is something we actually haven't seen them address before. We'll get to it when we get there later on, because I first want to touch on Hecate's and her quote-unquote nerf, right? It's technically not a nerf because it is prior to her official release, but because we've already seen a potential effect of it, you can count it as a nerf, I'd say. The change is relatively minor, actually. It's just her passive ability goes from enemy heroes cannot revive and cannot be granted immortality to all heroes cannot revive and cannot be granted immortality. So while this is a minor adjustment, it actually has huge implications for how the game is going to be played, especially in the RTA scene, right? In Guild Wars and in Arena, it doesn't really matter, but in RTA it does, because it's such a dynamic system of both players drafting against each other, and if Hecate shuts down both reviving and immortality only for the opponent, that means you can run her alongside of immortality units like BBK, like Lady of the Scales, and still run revive units with her as well, like Ruel, Maid Chloe, Nurse Yoha. It's just quite unfair, right? This actually isn't even something that doesn't have reason. For example, Briarwitch Iceria is not a one-sided anti-reviver, right? She makes it so that no units can revive when she is on the field. So this kind of just brings Hecate onto the level of Briarwitch. I know that Sinful Angelica only prevents the opponent from reviving, but she is a 4-star and way more limited in use cases than Briarwitch Iceria, right? So I can understand a unit being less useful having a slightly more powerful effect, whereas a unit that's way more versatile having a kind of a double-edged sword, you could say, right? Something that hurts the opponent but also kind of limits you as well in that regard. So this is very nice to see, honestly. I welcome this. I was honestly dreading having to fight like a Ruel plus a Hecate and stuff. People said that she was going to be the revive meta killer, but really only for half the players. So whoever's fighting the Hecate has to deal with the revives as well, and that wouldn't have been pretty, okay? So I'm really glad that they listened to the community feedback that people were giving, and they did discuss this matter, they said here, and they will be adjusting Hecate to fit accordingly. Now, a couple other things that they mentioned is the addition of new sets. Apparently people were not very happy that there's going to be 3 new sets, so just to provide you a quick summary, they're just going to release 2 of the 3 sets, right? They're actually not going to be releasing the acceleration set, I believe. Yeah, they're going to be excluding the acceleration set from the original 3 sets, so we are going to be getting the 2 more useful ones, the one that gives fixed damage, right, extra fixed damage, and the one that gives you like no cooldowns at the start of the match and increases your max health. So that's kind of nice. Acceleration was kind of a weird one, and I guess they took out like the weaker of the 3 sets. So it's interesting. We'll probably see this come later down the line with maybe an extra set on top of it as well. So it's good to see that Epic 7's actually expanding on providing more gear set options. I don't know if 3 gear sets would have been too much to farm for, given that acceleration probably to them was like a weaker set anyway. Kind of like when you look at speed, crit, and like hit set, you know, out of the 2, like speed and crit probably pretty good, hit set not many people really want to run, right? Because you can run effectiveness through other sets as well. 20% hit chance is not quite as useful as maybe getting 20% HP through an HP set. But yeah, anyway, with that aside, it doesn't really matter to me, and I think most people, when you're just farming, you're gonna end up getting a couple of sets up, and only a select few units are probably gonna take advantage of these new sets anyway. So it's not like you're farming a super generic set like a replacement for a speed set or a destruction set, for example, right? So I think this is gonna be fine, but it's good to see that, again, they're listening to player feedback, and that hopefully they will give us more opportunities to farm, especially this. I like that they want to help us obtain more leaves for farming future sets as well, so that's pretty good. The other thing is they are going to be adjusting the warfare rules, so they have mentioned that they're going to adjust the warfare rules. We made a video about my review on all the rules, and essentially the TLDR is the defense rule sucks. This increased penetration resistance by 30%, it was just way too good at limiting players, and that is exactly what Epic 7 developers agree with here, right? It restricted core damage dealers in the meta, and it caused a greater burden than intended during gameplay. And they also realized that some rules were too insignificant, namely the burn and bleed ones, right? So yeah, I think our experience with World Arena is pretty on point. And we'll go ahead and touch on the new warfare rules right now. So here we go with the new warfare rules. This system is actually pretty interesting. I hated it at first when it was being announced, and then as I play through the season, I can see the merits of it, and I'm glad that they're not just scrapping it entirely and trying to build upon the experience, right, that they've gotten from the first season. So we're still having the offensive, defensive, the weakening, and the resistance rules, right? The offensive rule is now when attacking, damage dealt increases proportional to the target's injuries by up to a maximum of 50%. So this is actually going to encourage maybe injury sets from being used, because the more injuries you deal, the more damage you're going to deal, right? And that's gonna definitely shift how people play, maybe a little less bruisery, maybe a bit more aggressively in this type of format. The defense rules were actually shifted as well, so instead of granting everyone defense penetration resistance by 30%, Imperium Illanov's passive essentially, they're only granting Ranger heroes this 40% damage reduction. And their reasoning for it is because Ranger heroes were really underwhelming in the last season, and I'll be honest, Ranger heroes are underwhelming in pretty much every season, I feel, but this might actually help a lot of them, especially like the bulkier ones, stay alive longer without having to use Guiding Light. Guiding Light is honestly, it's a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing because it's such a good artifact, but it's a curse because if you're not running Guiding Light, like what are you doing with your life, right? When you're playing an RTA, you want to protect your Rangers. They're typically frail, they're typically support units, and the few damage dealers that are out there that are Rangers are really squishy, right? So this will hopefully help. 40% damage reduction is pretty good. Keep in mind this does stack with like damage sharing effects too, so definitely be on the lookout for Rangers perhaps resurging as techs for these types of matches. The weakening rule, the burn and bleed 50% extra damage was terrible, but now at the end of each turn it's going to detonate burn, bleed, and bomb effects, so you actually don't need Summertime and Syria's artifact now. For Pirate Captain Flan, for example, you will just S3 with Pirate Captain Flan, inflict burns and bombs, and then end your turn and everyone's stunned. It's just, that's going to be insane to me, honestly. I think this is going to be quite scary, especially with Pirate Captain Flan, namely. Summertime Assyria too, right? She can definitely be very, very strong with this as well. Keep watch for people cleaving with these types of units now, right? Especially the burns and bleeds too. This is actually kind of a direct nerf to like Freerin type of teams, because if she eats a bunch of debuffs and they get detonated immediately, you don't have to wait a turn to detonate with a skill 1 or something. That's going to be very, very strong too. Quite scary, honestly. This one's actually turning out to be one of the scariest ones out of these three so far. And the last one, they actually kept the same. The resistance rules increase effect res by 100%. According to SmileGate here, the devs, they said that the rules are actually working really well, and they like how it's balancing effectiveness and effect resistance. So it's great. It's honestly my favorite rule here out of the 4 original ones, and I'm glad they kept it because, again, like I mentioned in my video, effect resistance is something that is struggles, right? Effectiveness always has 100% advantage over it, so I'm glad to see that there is still a 25% chance that we do get to have a fighting chance against these like 200 effectiveness build units. So heading back into the rest of the patch notes here with the warfare rules aside, this is the main thing that I wanted to talk about. SmileGate here, for the first time ever, is releasing a statement regarding hero balance and performance inflation is what they call it. Us in the community, we call it Powercreep, right? And so they said Epic 7 has continued its live service for over 7 years and has now become a game with over 300 heroes. In the collective RPG genre, we believe the arrival of an attractive new hero should be as exciting as the best content updates. I don't know about that, honestly. I think anyone who's played stuff like Fire Emblem Heroes, Fate/Grand Order, all these other things, you would know that collectively in the community, players don't treat new banners as content. In fact, when banners are the only thing that are there, people get quite upset. People want content to play because you're here for a game, right? So I do disagree with this statement. But, you know, as a gacha game, they kind of do want you to pull and incentivize you to pull for new units, okay? So they said, we always strive to ensure heirs feel the charm of newly released heroes while maintaining the value of existing heroes and equipment. That is obviously, you know, true stuff, right? Now, I'm not going to read every little bit here, but I'm going to highlight some of the more important parts. They said, however, in this process, there have been instances where heroes were released with performance levels exceeding our original intentions, leading to situations where the meta became excessively centered around specific heroes. In an effort to mitigate this, we responded by introducing new heroes and adjusting the balance of existing ones, but this approach ultimately resulted in the unintended side effect of accelerating overall performance inflation. As a result, we have reached a point where inflation has intensified, leading to increasingly negative PvP experiences. We recognize the seriousness of the current situation and believe that meaningful change is necessary. Going forward, we plan to adjust balance with several key directions in mind to ease performance inflation. First, we will reduce the influence of heroes who perform multiple roles simultaneously with excessively high efficiency. As live service continues over a long period, it is natural for new heroes' performance to gradually increase, but we acknowledge that we did not sufficiently control this trend. This was the result of misjudgments during the hero design phase, and as a development team, we take full responsibility and reflect deeply on this. Now, what they're saying outright here is that they're admitting to power creep, and I know people are going to come out of the woodworks and immediately be like, this is what they get for never nerfing characters. Again, in my personal opinion, you cannot morally justify nerfing characters in a gacha game that people spent hundreds or thousands of dollars for in terms of pulling, right? People lose trust in the game, people won't play the game, people won't spend money in the game will die. So the problem with Epic 7, though, is that if you asked me like 2 years ago, do you think there's power creep in Epic 7, is it bad? I would have said like no, right? Prior to like New Moon Luna, I would honestly say that the power creep in the game has not really been there. You know, I was still using things like randomly fire Cecilia to fight like an ambitious Tywin. There's a lot of counterplay, a lot of situations where you can just kind of pick and choose who you want to use and you can make them work. Nowadays, I would say most definitely yes, right? We have Boss Arunka, we have Rinnock, we have Lady of the Scales, we have Genesis Roz. You have all these absolutely insane units being released that when you look back at when Genoa was popular, right? Remember when Genoa was just shredding everything and that he was the best DPS in the game? He doesn't hold a candle to anything that we have now. Genesis Roz can just nuke an entire team at like 70, 80k HP if you like buff him with Nurse Yoha, for example. It's just getting out of hand, and a lot of these units are coming with multiple things in their kit. Their kits are overloaded, right? Instead of a unit stripping buffs so that someone else can come up afterwards and inflict debuffs, which is what the game used to have, right? We had buff strippers and then debuffers. You'd open with someone who stripped buffs, got rid of immortality or immunities and such, and then you have a debuffer come in and then inflict all your control skills, right? Now everything is pretty much all in one. Hey, do you want to like AoE mass control people? That's fine. Tenebria, Witch of the Mirror Tenebria just strips your buffs and then we'll just mass control you. You can't cleanse anything, and then we will whittle you down with dual attacks and like a disgusting skill 2 effect, right? Just deals damage proportional to your health. You're screwed. You can't cleanse anything, right? It's just, it doesn't feel good. And the power creep here is definitely, and I like how they're mentioning this, is really leading to increasingly negative PvP experiences. I know people always complain about the meta in RTA, no matter what season it is. It's become a running joke, right, in the community of like, hey, every season's the worst season. But the past few seasons, honestly, have felt so bad, especially for me personally. You guys would know I had a lot of fun with the Hellion Lua season, but if I had not randomly pulled Hellion Lua from my Covenant summons, I believe it was from Covenants, I probably would have stopped playing RTA around that time. I got really lucky. I think you guys got really lucky that I even pulled Hellion Lua to continue playing. Same thing with Bystander Huayang. This meta, I probably legitimately would not have ended even in Warlord, which I typically end in the top 3,000 of every RTA season, but this season I probably would not have been able to do it. My win rate was tanking, it was going below 50%, it was a struggle. It wasn't until I got Bystander Huayang that I was able to hold a candle to like the meta and like somehow incorporate her into my drafts well enough that I could compete. But without specific units now, it is very difficult. There's no more of me picking like Fire Cecilia, right? There's no more me like picking Earth Rin and such, because you just can't. I've built Charles, I've built Stark with like insane gear score counter gear. They have legitimately some of my best pieces of gear, and I can't use them because the meta demands that you use specific units, otherwise you're going to get run over by all of them at once. You can't pre-ban all of them. Your opponent's definitely going to take them because they're going to try to win. And if you're not competing on that same level, you're gone, right? If you played a trading card game before, if you're trying to play like a very casual deck, let's say Yu-Gi-Oh for example, you're trying to play a really casual, fun elemental hero deck, and then your opponent's out there playing just absolute meta, right? Whatever the current meta is. I don't know what the current meta is. And you're just going to get run over. They're going to summon like a bunch of monsters with a bunch of negations on the field. You can't play anything. You'll try to summon something that'll negate the effect, destroy it, and you're done. You're done for. You can't do anything in the entire match. That's what it feels like now. If you don't pick Boss of Runcum, what are you doing, right? They're going to just decimate your entire team. With who? With Rinok. You know, if you don't have Lady of the Scales, what are you doing? Like, you're just going to get run over because you don't have this insane damage mitigation, cleanser, immortality giver on your side of the field that can also AoE control the entire enemy team with fear. Right? You have such good DPSs like Spirit Eye Celine that can first turn nuke 2 units just by soul burning for free, with the first soul burn being increased damage for no reason. You have so many units that are insane that it's really hard to keep up with. So I'm glad that they're going to be addressing this. Now, I'm not going to keep my fingers crossed on this one. SmileGate has promised many things in the past that we still haven't seen come to fruition. So I do understand that, you know, they're asking for our understanding in the time that they need to adjust hero performance and such. But yeah, that is something that we just have to wait and see how they approach these things. And so they did mention here that adjusting the performance of heroes who have already had these capabilities must be approached with great caution, as doing so could lead to even greater disappointment for heirs who have obtained these heroes and invest their affection into them. They're wording in this way because they can't really just come out and say, hey guys, we know lots of you spent like hundreds or thousands of dollars on these units, and we really don't want to nerf them because you'll get really upset and probably quit our game, right? And or maybe force refunds and stuff through credit card companies and things, and you know, can lead to some serious issues with their finances. Now, they're saying that rather than reinforcing weaknesses, we aim to restructure the meta by making heroes more intuitive and clearly defining each hero's roles and strengths, focusing on specialization instead of allowing a single hero to fulfill multiple roles. DPS-oriented heroes will be designed and adjusted to deliver decisive firepower at key moments, while protection-oriented heroes will be able to safeguard allies more reliably. Again, cool promises, cool concepts here. We need to wait and see how this plays out. But again, keep in mind that these changes, even though they want each position to be clearly distinguished, we need to wait several months, because the development process is not something where like they make a hero 2 weeks before release. These heroes, these designs, these animations are already in the works, like 6 months ahead of time, at the very least, like 6 months ahead of time, right? So while we're playing right now in December, they're probably currently working on the next batch of heroes for like the spring and the summer, at least, you know, design-wise, conceptually, what they want to see. So yeah, we do need to be patient. I know I really want these changes as soon as possible as well to reinvigorate me and like light up that passion for the game again, because it is dwindling a little bit. The meta takes a toll. It really does take a toll, especially for someone like me who has to play pretty much like every day or every other day for content and such. It is draining, right? Nothing is fun about it anymore because I can't use the units that I actually want to use. We used Mediator Cowarick in yesterday's video, and I was so happy that I was able to use him. I was ecstatic. If you haven't watched that, by the way, definitely go check that one out. That was really fun. And the day before that, I think we played with DDR. I was just on a complete losing streak, just getting decimated by people, but we had an amazing DDR game, and it was so much fun. Those fun moments where you can like come out with really cool counterplays and such would be amazing to see again. Right, so I really do want to see the developers go in this direction. They said that they'll discuss countermeasures for heroes that restrict specific enemy mechanics. So Floodgate units, Bellion, Solitaria, Harsetti, right? Those units that basically just say no, like Briarwitch Iceria, no reviving, right? Bellion says no souls, right? Mort says no counterattacks. Like, if you're trying to pick fun units, like let's say you're trying to play like a counter team or something, you can never do that ever again because Mort exists and Astromancer Elena exists. Your opponent just has to pick one or both of them, and your entire team just doesn't even function anymore, and you just get rolled over, right? So it's really good to see that they might come out with countermeasures for this, or they say like, or have uniquely specialized effects. That'd be cool to see. But again, these are just promises, nothing guaranteed right now. They said, while these heroes are generally designed with corresponding weaknesses and counterplay in mind, the available heroes that can counter them are often limited, difficult to obtain, or require specific equipment or artifact setups, right? Think about when Lua was released, the original Lua and Knockwall, where they can like increase your skill cooldowns, right, by a turn. And in order to decrease them back, you would have to, before Laya was released, you had to run Fire Lilius with Mort's Artifact. Mort's Artifact, when you use a non-attack skill on a knight, you can decrease your units' cooldowns by a turn. That was like the only way to counter Lua and Knockwall back then, right? You would just get rolled over and just run over if you couldn't do that. Until, of course, they released Laya, and then we actually had some counterplay. So the other thing that they are actually acknowledging here is that counterplay is actually just really difficult to get. A lot of these units are units that are ML5s, they're really hard to get, and or limited heroes, right? You have very strong effects on limited heroes, or even limited artifacts that make it really hard to fight these types of teams. And yeah, it would just be really nice to make things more accessible. Again, even though they're a gacha game, they're a PvP game, and as a PvP game, you definitely want to encourage your players to be playing the game and not just collecting heroes, right? And hero collectors in general, if you just make a strong hero and everyone's just playing PvE, no one really cares because, you know, you're just clearing content, you're just clearing waves of enemies, you get to see your favorite heroes and your animations on screen. In something like this, especially if they're hosting an Epic 7 World Championship, they have these like Guild War tournaments and stuff, they're hosting live events, right? The finals of the Epic 7 World Championships are broadcasted, they love these live streams. We cover them on the channel here as well. And for their end game to be PvP and for them to ignore like balance is really, really bad. So I'm glad, again, that they're taking a look at this. They said, continuing, in particular, when such heroes are paired with specific allies that compensate for their weaknesses, even designated counter heroes may fail to function as intended. This creates a significant obstacle for newer returning heirs who lack experience dealing with these mechanics, and it also places excessive emphasis on ban pick strategies for veteran players enjoying content such as World Arena, making battles more difficult overall. And I like how they actually mention that people are trying to enjoy the content. Like, playing PvP should not be something that only the people with competitive spirits do, right? We need people to just play for fun. They're probably seeing a decline in the amount of players who are actually playing, and you know, having to pick specific units just because I can't win otherwise is a horrible experience overall. I also really do like the fact that they're acknowledging heroes that are not just in a vacuum, that these characters are paired with allies, right? You can pair Ruel with Maid together. Yes, you made Ruel good and playable, but you also just made a monster meta where everybody is reviving everybody else. Ruel revives Maid, who revives Spirit Eye Celine, who puts immortality on everybody, revives another unit, and it's just crazy. You have Apoc Ravi that can S3 right? Revive Spirit Eye Celine. We've seen this in one of my matches earlier this week. A Ravi S3s revive Spirit Eye Celine. Spirit Eye Celine S3s revives the entire team, and we just do it all over again. These characters don't exist in a vacuum, and SmileGate, they're going to have a really difficult time with this because they have so many heroes. I'm not envious of what they have to do here, but they have so many characters that they need to have some sort of a playtesting team in the background, really try to break these heroes before they get released. Because as they stand right now, and I'm in support of no nerfs, if they want to continue down the path of no nerfing, they need to be very strategic in how they release characters. I've been saying this for years. My stance of this hasn't changed. You can go back to videos past several years, and I have the same stance. They have to design heroes that are balanced, that aren't like better than other characters. Just they have to have a niche, they have to be specialized. You can't have good generalists. If you have a good generalist like Hecate, by the way, damage dealer, floodgate, right, just insane unit overall, counters immortality, counters damage sharing, or counters immortality and counters reviving and such, like you just like how do you fight that besides just ban it, right? So again, they said to address this, we plan to expand more universally applicable countermeasures. We will proceed by adjusting the balance of existing heroes, equipment, and artifact, while also introducing new heroes who can reliably perform counter roles without possessing excessively high power ceilings. This is not an easy task, as I mentioned earlier, but we believe is a necessary one. We ask for your continued attention as these changes unfold, and we will do our utmost to meet your expectations. So, again, very glad that they're putting this out there. This is a very vulnerable moment for the company to be coming out and admitting this. A lot of companies wouldn't come out and do this at all, but I think because they have such a public-facing team with all these live events and such, especially with the tournaments and everything, that they do need to address this stuff in particular. So I am glad that they're going to start by adjusting existing heroes, artifacts, and equipment instead of just releasing more and more new ones, because I think they realize that that's part of the problem. Adjusting existing heroes and stuff will also make it so that all of us have access to these types of counters straight out the gate, right? Especially for you veteran players out there who've been playing for a while on and off, you probably have some of these characters sitting around. They might not currently have a role in the meta, but they can certainly be given one with balance adjustments, for example. Yeah, so this is really nice to see, and again, I'm not holding my breath on this. I'm not having my fingers crossed on this. Whatever we get is what we get, and I just hope that we get something good. So with that being said though, guys, thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your thoughts and opinions are in the comment section down below, and I will catch you in the next one. Take care.